Hey guys, it's Kyla at the MJC, and I am here today to talk to you about the marital relationship and maintenance sections in the proposed marital settlement. Before I get into that, though, I just want to remind you all that nothing in this video is intended to be legal advice. It's a video, so I'm not able to analyze your specific situation, and I'm not able to determine whether this is the right form for you to fill out in your situation, to determine whether a court is likely to approve what you're proposing, or whether what you're asking for is what's best in your situation. So if you do have those kinds of questions, I would recommend getting some legal advice. You can get brief legal advice for free here in Milwaukee County through the Marquette Volunteer Legal Clinics. If you are not located in Milwaukee County, you can contact the clerk of court for your area to find out what resources are available where you are. All right, so here in the marital relationship section, this is where you will either indicate if you are seeking a divorce or a legal separation. If you're seeking a divorce, all you have to do is check number 1, divorce, and then move on to the next section. For those of you who are doing a legal separation rather than a divorce, you have to indicate legal separation, but you also have to indicate why you are requesting a legal separation and not a divorce. Obviously, you can see it's a pretty short line, so you don't need to write the court a novel, but just a one sentence or a few words explaining why. So for a lot of folks, it might be because, my religion does not permit divorce. Or it could be because you hope to reconcile. We hope to reconcile. Or it could be whatever your reasoning is. So you'll write that in on this line if you're seeking a legal separation. But as you guys know from our different caption videos, John and Jane are seeking a divorce, so I'm going to check number 1, divorce. And then we move into the maintenance section. So maintenance is spousal support. They used to call it alimony, and in some places it's still called alimony, but here in Wisconsin we call it maintenance. And again, maintenance is just spousal support, so you don't want to mix this up with child support. This is different than child support. And you have sections in the maintenance area to talk about maintenance for both people. So in this first one, it's talking about maintenance for the petitioner, or if you filed as joint petitioners, joint petitioner A. So basically, if you remember back to our caption, whoever's name gets listed on top, whoever's being listed first, we're talking about whether that person would get maintenance. And so you can see up here, in this situation, it would be Jane. And I would say, don't panic, those of you who are doing proposed with minor children. This section is substantially the same, and by substantially I mean it is identical, so that we use this video for both. So don't worry if you're doing with rather than without minor children. Just happen to be in the without forms. Okay, so going back to maintenance. This section is about whether the petitioner or joint petitioner A will receive maintenance. And you have 3 options for that. You can either say that you're proposing that that person give up their right to get maintenance now or ever in the future. You can select B, which is saying that you are not asking for that person to get maintenance right now, but you would like to leave open the right for that person to ask maintenance up to a certain point. And if you pick this, here you'll put basically when is the date when they cannot ask for maintenance anymore. It can be 1 year, 10 years, million years, whatever date you would like to put. At least, I should note, at least as far as filling out the form. Obviously, if you have questions about whether a court will actually approve what you're putting here, that'd be a great question for legal advice. But in our situation, we'll say that Jane, let's say Jane wanted 5 years to be able to ask for maintenance. And then down here, you'll indicate, is the other person only allowed to ask for maintenance if something specific happens? So, it could be maybe Jane can only ask for maintenance if the respondent, so that's John, if the respondent sells the business. Okay, if that happens, then Jane can ask for maintenance, but not under other circumstances. Or maybe could be a situation where if joint petitioner B, so remember you'll use the joint petitioner B language if you filed jointly originally but are now going forward separately. You'll call the other person, you'll call the other person petitioner or respondent if you filed this separately to begin with. Sorry, I know it's a little confusing where some of you are doing it one way and some of you are doing it another. But anyway, if joint petitioner B wins the lottery, you could put that. So basically here is if you have a specific circumstance where you want that person to be able to ask for maintenance. If you just want to say they can ask for maintenance under any situation that a court deems appropriate, that's 2. So 2 is basically saying anytime the court thinks there's been an appropriate change, they can ask for maintenance. That's 2. If you want to limit it to specific circumstances, that's 1. And delete that there. The last one is if you are suggesting that the other person pay maintenance. So if Jane is filling this out and she says, you know what, I do think that the respondent, John, should pay me maintenance, then here she's going to put what amount she proposes per month. And if your question is, well, how much should I ask for? Unlike child support, there isn't a standard calculation for maintenance. So if your question is, how much maintenance should I ask for? That's a really good question, again, for some legal advice. But we'll say in our situation that Jane already knows she wants to ask for $250 per month in maintenance. You're going to put a date when that amount will begin. It's a little bit weird putting a starting amount because obviously you don't know when your final hearing will be yet. You don't know that until you turn the paperwork in, or at least for most people you won't know that yet. So you can put, we often will put the first of the next month, so I'm filling this out in November of 2020, so we would put 12 of 2020, but just know that the court may not agree, like the court may not make it effective December 1st, because obviously I won't be into court by the first of the next month in most situations. And so the court may not be willing to backdate it to my date proposed here. But that can just be a simple shorthand. Otherwise, if you have a specific date you want to ask for it to start, a date in the future, then feel free to put that date as well. And then here you're going to put when you're proposing maintenance shall end. So again, this date can be 1 year, can be 10 years, can be 100 years. So you'll put down when that is, and we'll say Jane wants it to last for 5 years. So from 2020 to 2025. If you're wanting it to be indefinite, to be honest with you, I suppose that you would just leave this section blank, but if you are wanting it to continue indefinitely, that's typically a really good situation to get some legal advice about it. And then you'll notice down here for the respondent, we have the same 3 options. And a lot of folks will leave this blank, so they'll say, I don't know what the respondent wants, or I don't know what joint petitioner B wants. But you do need to fill it in for the other person. This is your proposal for the other person. So in our situation, the question would be, does Jane want to pay John maintenance? Does she think she should have to pay him maintenance? If so, she'll pick C and fill it out just like she did for herself. If not, if she wants him to continue to have the right to ask for maintenance, she'll pick B. If she wants to say John will give up his right to get maintenance now or ever in the future, even though she's going to be paid maintenance, then she'll check A. So you will propose for the other person. Same thing, if you are the respondent or joint petitioner B, you will also fill out this one for the other person. And you'll just pick whichever of the 3 you think you should pay them. And then last but not least, you're going to indicate what to do with payments. So if you are suggesting that there be no payment, so if instead of checking C, we had checked A here, so we were saying both people should give up their right to get maintenance, then we would check A. Same thing, if we had checked B for both of these, we would check A. So basically, unless you have checked C for either person, you don't need to, you just check A. But if you are suggesting someone receives maintenance, which we're suggesting Jane, we're proposing that Jane will receive maintenance, then you will pick B. So we've got B there, and then you can either say, if the other person is self-employed, you can say that they'll just pay directly to the Wisconsin Trust Fund. If they are not self-employed, then you will check by income assignment, and you will list as much as you know about the other person's employer. So if you know the name of their company, you're going to put that. So we know John works at Mario Brothers Plumbing. And you'll put the address of the payroll office if you know or if you can find that information out. And we really would have you try and find it if you can. If you are unable to find the address of their payroll office, you can leave that line blank. But in Jane's situation, she knows where they're located, so we'll just put that information in. East Bowser Boulevard, which we had in, I think it was up in Brown Deer. 226, nope, it's 223, isn't it? And then you'll put in a phone number for the company if you know it. A great way to find that information is just to Google them. Often you'll be able to find the phone number for a company or for their payroll office just through Google. If they have a fax number, you'll write it here. You may remember from previous videos that John's job does not have a fax number, so we'll just put NA. And then the last thing you'll do in the maintenance section is you're going to talk about whether there are any arrears for previously ordered maintenance. So you have these options. You can either say if no maintenance has ever been ordered, so neither of you has ever been ordered to pay maintenance, you'll check A. It's just saying no maintenance was ordered, so there are no back amounts in maintenance. If maintenance has been ordered between you guys, so often that could have come through a temporary order of some kind, or through any previous case in which maintenance was ordered, you'll want to do one of these. And so B is saying there was maintenance ordered, but the person paid it all like they were supposed to. So if John had, let's say he was supposed to pay Jane through a temporary order, but he has paid all of it like he was supposed to, she could check B and say he paid everything, so he doesn't owe me anything. C is saying either if there are, so if you know there are arrearages, or if you're not sure, but you know that no matter what, you just want to say, look, if there are any back amounts of maintenance, I want to forgive that. Let's set John's balance to 0, or let's set the other person's balance to 0 and start fresh. That's going to be C. So C is saying, if there are arrears, set them to 0 and let's start brand new. D is saying that whatever amount is listed in the trust fund computer system, I want that person to pay it back through a monthly withholding of X amount. And then here you'll propose what amount you want them to pay every month. And again, beginning, you can put the first of the next month. Whether a court is actually going to order that's a whole different question. But you can put the first of the next month, or whatever date you would like to propose that it begin. And then here you'll indicate whether or not that's going to earn interest. So if you have an arrears, does it earn interest? If so, how much? So if it's not going to earn interest, 0%. If it is going to earn interest, 1% or 6% or whatever it is you're proposing, you'll put in that line. So that is that section. E is very similar to D. It is used if you are saying, you know what, I'd like to set our arrears to something specific. So usually this is if you're forgiving part of it. So you're saying, John, if Jane says John owes me $5,000, but I agree for him to just pay $2,500 of that, and I want to forgive the rest. And then you can either say, if John's got $2,500 sitting around, you can say, 1, he's just going to pay $2,500, and here is his deadline to make that payment. So let's say Jane's giving him till June of next year. Here is the deadline for the other person to make that payment. Or you could, let's say John doesn't have $2,500, then you could say that's going to come out through an income withholding. So just like we were doing in D, you'll say how much the other person is going to pay per month, and then when that payment is going to begin. And you'll also indicate whether or not it's going to earn interest. Again, if it's not, 0. If it is, you'll put in the number. Last but not least, we have F. F is if you're saying, you know what, I just want the court to figure out if there are arrears, and if there are, how they're going to be paid back. So that would be F, and so you can select that one. All right, well, that is all for this section. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you for the next one, but until then, I hope you go out and represent yourselves well.